So we're going to take a look at the email manager. That'll be kind of the first tool that I open up and show you the good stuff that's in there. Then that's going to take us to the email templates table. And we're going to do some good stuff in there too. This is where you're going to load your default Kodak Alaris dp2 supplied emails that come with version 20.3. This is also where I'll show you how to start the customization process for your own emails. Then from the email templates table, we double click on a record that opens up the HTML preview and HTML assistant tools. Sometimes through these sessions, you guys, because we kind of move at a quick pace because of the nature of only having 45 minutes together, sometimes it seems that like there's a lot more going on the screen than there actually is. So I try to help you build some muscle memory during these sessions and kind of do the same thing twice. Oops, and I'm really cruising through this presentation without saying a word, so let me back up a little bit. But one of my points here I'd like to make is go back, watch the video, stop it, start it, kind of take it at your own place so that you can be doing the same thing at the same time. And I think when you have that kind of secondary view of taking it at your own pace after getting this live presentation, I think that's when you're kind of able to better connect the dots and do your own implementation. So take this session for what it's worth. This will not be the be all end all to your email learning. We want these sessions, guys, to whet your appetite and get your creative juices flowing, and then contact us, via our support portal, our service desk, and say, hey, I need some help with this, or I kind of got partially there, but maybe one of my pieces is missing. That's when we love to work with you guys. We always like to love to work with you guys, but it's always good if you kind of do some kind of initial trying and set up yourself, and that's always a good time to bring us into the mix. Although you could just request training and then we could just do everything live too. So you guys have lots of options. We're here to help you out. So here's those three tables we're going to visit. Email manager. From there, that launches the email templates table, which is the records of your emails, stores to, from, macros, so that those email addresses can be pulled in, or maybe they're hard coded because some of your emails just go to your printing department to let them know when there's a printer batch error or something like that. And then when you double click on one of these records, guys, in the dp2 email templates table, that then opens up the real stuff, which is the HTML, the KPL commands that when run through your dp2 web server, return the actual results that your customers would see in their browser. So really cool stuff, pretty streamlined, but again, it's kind of nice to be reminded of that as I go through this, because as you know, dp2 can look like a lot is going on and a lot of tables are open, when actually that might not really be the case. It might just be kind of getting used to the new tables that you're seeing. So you're going to see me install the dp2 default emails. There's also a function I want to show you in the email templates table to remove KC2 emails that you may have installed during your initial KC2 setup or your evaluation of KC2. Maybe those are still hanging around, but this will remove them. I'll show you how to copy default emails. This is really one important concept that we want to get across in the session today, everyone, is we don't want you to use the dp2 supplied default emails. I'll show you which ones they are, and then in this session I'll show you how to copy those, duplicate them, and then copy the contents of the actual HTML and KPL functions, because we don't want those to be overwritten when you install a new version of dp2. The email templates table, that's your to and from and your subject line. And then I want to give you an understanding of how to use the HTML preview and assistant tools to customize your own emails, probably from starting with one of our generic ones, not necessarily. I want to show you how to access the KPL functions that make good things happen, kind of like macros. But in HTML and KPL terms that return what you want out of your database to send in your emails to your customers. And this is an email customization class, guys, but the same rules will apply. Here's our trusty little guy that says, let's go do it. So I'm going to switch over to dp2 now and Can you guys give me a high five on this? Everybody there with me? You see my dp2 screen now? Just give me a visual. Awesome. Thanks. I like these opportunities to check in. You know, it makes me feel like everybody's there and listening. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'll put those hands down and then I'll ask you for a check-in again. So I'm in 20.3, a version of 20.3. That's what gives us the events category in dp2. And, you know, emails, I want to make a point here that emails do not have to be set up and sent as a part of events that are triggered in some way, shape, or form, and then an email might be sent. I mean, certainly that's a very likely scenario in your workflow to send an order shipped email or an email when this happens or that happens, or to send an attachment or a zip file of images and, you know, maybe after exporting images. So there's lots of likely scenarios where you will have an email tied to one of your events that when triggered, the email gets sent. But I want to make the point that you can test emails outside of the whole event setup. You can send emails manually outside of the whole event setup. So this session does not cover events. If I have time, I do kind of like to head into the events table and show you how, after you've customized your own lab email, I like to show you how you could send it manually. I also like to show you how you could tie that to one of your events that maybe you set up initially with one of our generic emails. So that's a kind of a nice way to wrap this session up, but I just want to make it clear that it's not, you know, a necessary part. So I just selected Email Manager. You guys know the drill. In dp2, there's commonly more than one way to get to the same place or do the same thing. So I just want to point out on your admin taskbar, you also have an Email Manager task there as well. So I just want to make that point because I think it does help to emphasize that, hey, you know, I can do some work with emails and they don't necessarily have to be a part of events that are automatically triggered. But again, certainly that's a very likely scenario. So here we are on the Email Manager table. I always refer to the table by what it's called. I think that's a great way for everybody to get grounded and rooted and talk about things using the same language. There's just 3 tabs here. This is where you'll set up communication with your email server. You can run a test and contact your email server. You can send a test email. You can see me typing I can't talk and type though, so I usually slow down when I'm doing this. There a to and a from is required. If you forget the from, we'll remind you when you hit the send. And when you send, you'll see, you know, your success if completed. So, you know, the developers did a good job, guys, of giving you some testing tools right on this setup tab so you can make sure that you're communicating with that email server. Next up is the templates tab. This is where I'll be spending some time. I'm going to save it for just 1 second. This will open up that email templates table that I've briefly described a couple of times. It contains your email records, your to and your from, and also the HTML file associated with the record in the database. I just want to point out this, the developers put these this text messages kind of helpful tab in here for you. If you are sending some of your emails as text messages, they gave you the different providers as of when this was published, and whether you're sending SMS or MMS messages and the syntax for those. There's a new text message email field in the customers table. I just want to point that out. I have my windows just to kind of keep things neat and clean a little bit. I use that remember window location just for some of my demonstrations so that I can prevent windows from piling up on top of each other. I'll tell you guys, during these sessions, I use very good kind of window management behavior, but I certainly don't do that day to day. I have about 55 windows open in dp2 at any one time, and I'm sure that's no different from how you operate, but I will try to keep things neat and clean. And I just want to point out that we do have a text message email column field in the customer data table. And then you could, you know, you could actually pull, use a macro to pull that text message email out from your customer record and, you know, kind of connect those dots as you normally would when you're dealing with macros. All right, so next up, I go back to the templates tab in Email Manager, and I'm just going to click Manage Email Templates. And to keep things clean, I just close that Email Manager. So again, I want to try to keep the interface clean and neat. I tend to circle my mouse around just to kind of, so I can say, hey guys, this is where I am. I mean, I can come over here and I can put up this big red bouncing ball, but then when I actually want to click on anything, I have to kind of go to the other side of the screen and come back to a normal pointer. So I'll try to draw your attention both visually and give you an audio cue to let you know where I am. So when you guys open up your dp2 email templates table, it may be empty. You may have not ever loaded email templates before. So I want to first show you the actions. You can right click or get to your actions. There's a section in here, import email templates from the file system. So this is how you can import new email templates from an HTML pages email templates directory. And when you do this in your database, you guys, mine are already there. I want to point out in this training and in the recording, if you review it later, you could compare what you're getting to what I'm showing you here. This is the current list of emails that you could expect to see. I mean, depending on what version of dp2 you're on, we're constantly, not constantly, but we have added more emails to the mix. So, and we're trying to make, new versions of dp2 available as we can, just so that as things are changing and improving in one of these new parts of dp2, being emails and events, you have access to that. So you can always check with us too, depending on what you see versus, what you have on your system versus what you're seeing here. Just, give us a question or give us a call. So all of ours start with this generic order received, generic text message, generic order shipped, and then we have a couple of great ones for printer failure messages, whether it be a batch printing error, whether you want to send that as an email or a text message. Depending on how you resize, guys, this window, you'll get your to and from, CC, BCC, subject lines down here. You get macros that you would expect and want, if you're pulling your to and from. All of our from stuff is coming from the lab info from your admin taskbar. So you'll see a lot of that in the sample emails that I pull up. So be aware of, the ones that you get in your system by default when you choose import. These are a couple that I've manually added, and I'm going to show you how to manually create your own from one of these. What's this one do? This one sends a digital download ready email. I probably have a macro in here that's pulling that from some rendered location and then using a macro to kind of finish it up and find the right file. Same thing with a zip file. I think I'm using a process after zip file out of export images. So I know I might be saying things that say, hey, that sounds really good. Can I, have that process after script? When I ran this session last week, guys, that was like the only question I got from everybody on the call was, yes, I'd love that, zip text file that is used as a process after script and export images. It zips up your images into a zip file. So someone shoot me a question, and as long as I get one question on that, I'll send that out to everybody in the follow-up email with some screenshots, with some help, and then we've certainly been helping a couple of labs that have chosen to implement that. So, again, this is not your be-all, end-all. Sometimes it's good to come to these sessions just to say, I think she said something about doing blah, 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 and I'd really like to find out more about how the heck I actually do that. So if that's what you get out of this session, then that is awesome. Let it certainly whet your appetite. So let me start to show you how these actually work. So again, this is a record in the database, right? And when I double click on that record, it opens up the HTML preview. So this is kind of when it starts to look that there's a lot going on the screen, but there's really not. It's just that, you know, this dp2 email templates table continues to be open over here. I double clicked on one of those records and it opened up, rightfully so, this HTML preview. It's really one of two HTML tools that have been in dp2 for a long time. And I have to tell, for those of you guys who are on the line, if you're expecting to see anything terribly new inside of the tools, you probably won't, maybe other than the HTML email class that I'm going to be referring to and pulling out some KPL handy functions out of there for customizing your emails. So as this blue title bar indicates, this HTML preview assists in adding dynamic data to your HTML reports, email templates, that's kind of the space I'm hanging out in today for this session, or HTML user interface screen. It's really kind of cool. Tom Aplin, I think, was the one who recently said, you know, why don't I make it easier on labs when they access one of these HTML files, whether it be a report or an email. This is an email, and here we're showing you, you know, where that directory is. This, I'm here on this folder button. This would actually open up that folder containing. I want you guys to, you know, use your tool tips in here, get to know the system. But anyway, this is really handy for you because it automatically pulls in a parameter from your most recent order ID in the system. And if we think about, you know, really what this file is, I'm going to expand it on the left. So now the HTML preview window, guys, has taken up my whole screen. So now it covered up the email templates table. So this is the real stuff over here. I mean, this is the HTML. This is the these are the KPL commands that are kind of like macros, you know, that say, hey, give me the name out of the customer field, give me this order information, you know, put a signature in that pulls in all of our lab information stuff as far as email and contact phone number. So, you know, a lot of what you see over here makes sense. And this is not a formatting class for HTML, or, you know, it doesn't really get into any of that level, you guys, but I'll tell you this, you know, with the generic emails that ship with 20.3, you have great formatting examples, great KPL function examples to just copy and paste from and use in a different email template. So kind of get to know what's here, and you'll kind of be, you know, really helping yourself get to know how to customize your own emails. And then, as I mentioned it before, you know, it's the dp2 web server that's responsible for returning these results, and this would be the parameter that comes after your, you know, your question mark and your URL. So if you guys know it to that level, you know, what this does from, you know, when it passes through a web server and then returns these results, then that's really the mix that your combination that you're seeing here. I'm going to close this, and this is where I kind of like to build your muscle memory in this very brief session. Now I'm just back to that dp2 email templates table. Remember, I double clicked on the order received. I'll just double click on this very simple text message one, where basically it just says, hey, your order has shipped. If I expand it to see what's in it, really, well, it's really void of HTML, so it really has these commands. And I'll just point out here, I don't want to go a whole lot deeper into this. If this sparks questions and conversations, type them in the question box or get in touch with us after this session via the service portal. But really, it's the dp2 web server that's looking for these comments. Like this whole string I'm selecting here is really a comment, and you could actually put comments in here that, you know, are ignored. But the web server is looking for something interesting, and really what it's looking for is this KPL and, you know, object-oriented calls for your fields out of the database, and you know, and that's coming from really these first, you know, 3 lines to include this information, create the email object. So be careful of removing kind of anything on, at least in this, your first line, or the one that I showed you before. I'll go back and show you that again. All I'm doing, guys, is going back and forth, right? Double clicking, it opens up the HTML preview. I'm expanding this side of the screen. And obviously this one's more robust. It's one of the emails, the generic order received. This one contains a few commands up at the top that you wouldn't want to remove because it includes the email class, which contains all of the KPL functions that you're going to want. It creates the email object. It uses those URL parameters to get the last order so that you actually see something over here right away. It's a really nice, handy feature that was kind of recently added, I think. Okay, so enough muscle memory there. You know now how to double click on the dp2 templates and it opens up the preview. They go hand in hand. I mean, you really can't have a record without having that HTML file associated with it, but it's possible. So this is where I like to show you how we want you to duplicate one of the generic ones so that the next time you install dp2, guys, you won't be overwriting it. So as is kind of customary in dp2, you could probably expect to right click and choose the duplicate function. So that's what I'm doing on the generic order received sample. This is just a confirmation. I don't want to really take the time to read all these dialog boxes. So I'll just call this the lab order received. You know, you might start a naming convention in your lab that puts your lab name or initials on in front of everything, and you know that's yours versus this generic list, and also these printer failure messages, records in the system too. So if I save that, and I probably should have taken a little bit more time in that first message because it did say that you're about to duplicate the record in the database, but it won't have anything associated with it. So there's a couple of ways to do it. You could double click and the developers will create you a really simple one. I mean, that's one way to do it, but really if you start out with a duplication, guys, it's probably because you like a lot of the good stuff that comes with, you know, the default one that got installed in your system, and you want all those HTML contents and guts and KPL functions to come with it. So I'm going to select both of these with my control key and right click, and there is a function to copy the HTML template from one to the other. And when I choose that, I can either go one way or the other way. It only makes sense to start with the generic one and go to this lab one that I'm creating. So that's why I'm choosing the answer that says 1 to 2. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I do. And now when I double click and open this copy of the generic one, you know, just kind of review over here. Make sure you're looking at your lab one. We don't want you to spend a whole lot of valuable time you know, looking at or working on this email and customizing it only to have it overwritten. So we're really trying to kind of hit this one hard for you guys to make sure that you guys are getting this on the line and you don't overwrite anything. So as I mentioned before, kind of get to know these default emails. I mean, some of it is kind of self-explanatory, like this one's pulling in a customer field name. Obviously, you know, that's how it's, you know, greeting me up here. It's received, you know, thank you for your order. We've received your order. This is pulling in a customer order ID. And maybe that's not, guys, where you're storing your order ID. Maybe you don't store it in the customer table. Maybe you just want to pull in the regular order ID from the order table. And there's a lot of other really kind of good things happening in here. But I'm going to go back one more time, and I'm going to start with a bare bone basic one, because you can always go back to the one that's locked and loaded. But I also want to show you this way. I think it's very valuable. I'm just going to do the lab order received. I can't type test, and I'll put this in order received. I'm going to show you what these types are all about, and I'm just going to say it out loud now. And I'm going to make a note because the last thing I'm going to show you guys is how to manually send these emails from your order data table. It's a right click in the order data table. You'll see these types kind of listed as categories. Then you'll see the emails, the respective emails inside of them. But give me 1 second and I'll kind of wrap up that way. So now if I double click on this one, notice I'm not doing the whole copy HTML contents. But dp2 is going to create it for me. Okay, I'll create it. So now just notice the difference. It's a really marked difference of what you get. Remember the first time I copied the HTML contents and it was pretty well jam-packed. Might you have to spend some time with it to kind of figure out what it's jam-packed with? Absolutely, and I'll give you some information that helps you kind of figure it out. But this one is really, really basic, and this is the one I'm going to start with. And remember, this is not an HTML class, so I'm not going to get into HTML, but basically it says hello, customer name. I'll put a comma in there because it looks like we sent that out without a comma. And I want to point this out. You could work on this side of the HTML preview window. Perfectly valid. You can type over here. You can add over here. You can save. Now I'm over on the right-hand side, guys. I just want to draw your eyes to it because this mouse is not real visible on the screen. But the red button over here indicates a save. I'm going to save it. Here's my comma. But many of you like to work in Notepad++. So if that's your HTML editor of choice, then I'm going to choose edit. That's what is mine of choice. This is how, if you hold down Control and click this sometime, this is where you could go find an HTML WYSIWYG editor of your choice that you might want to work with. So depending on what tool you like to work with to edit and create and type your HTML, you certainly have options beyond just this left-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to load Notepad++. I've already resized it, right? It fits perfectly over here on the left-hand side of the screen. And this is really cool. If you have this live checkbox selected as you save over here in Notepad++, then your results are live and updated as you do that. And I'll do that in just a second. I'm just going to change the language here to HTML, get some cool color coding, shows me what comments are HTML versus fixed text. By the way, guys, there's a ton of help in the information. So couple this video with the help file. If you press F1, you'll be brought to the help in dp2 with lots of links to additional kind of helpful pieces concerning HTML preview and also the assistant, which I haven't even gotten to yet. So let me just start doing a couple of quick things here and say, thank you for your order received. And I'll say I want a date KPL function there. So I'll just put the word date there. For your reference, your order number is, and let's say I want the order ID there. Okay, so I'm just kind of building kind of the template up. And this is a paragraph line, so I could copy this whole paragraph line and paste it down here. I'll just tab that over just to kind of keep things at least visually aligned in here. Let's say, I'll say you will receive an email when your order is shipped to, and let's say, and you can see the matches coming up. It's really pulling up matches that are in this file. Let's say we'll ship it to, let me create a line break here. The person's name, put a break here, and their address. One more, guys, and then I'll start doing it. I just wanted to kind of have these contents here so I had something to work with. And then I'll just do city, state, and zip. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to save it over here just to kind of see structurally what I'm doing so far. All right, structurally that looks pretty good, but now let's get to the substance and really see, okay, well, I want the date, and I know that I want the date from this order data table. What's it called? Order receive date or order date. That's the date that I want here. Well, as the name suggests over here, guys, I'm on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a very handy HTML assistant. And this is when the assistant comes into play, when it's like, okay, I know I need a KPL function in here to return what I want. So where is it? What's it called? How do I find it? This is where the assistant comes into play. And this, again, I love to say it in these sessions because I don't want you to see this and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much here. Yeah, there's a lot here. Press F1 here as well. That'll take you to a help file. On the bottom of the help file, it'll give you a link to one of Tom Aplin's presentations from the workshop. So there's a lot to be discovered here, but you don't have to do it on your own, but you might want to do some self-discovery first between the help files and the video that's already posted actually from last week. I'll probably leave that one on there. So I want you to go to the classes and then this this email class. Basically this email class, guys, it contains all the other classes for your order functions, your HTML functions, your formatting functions, your email and date functions. It's jam-packed, so stick around. When you're doing your emails, pull up the email class, and then this is basically a long list of all the functions that you can access. But I'm going to start you off right with an order shortcut. If you know you want, for an example, an order field, and I know I want an order field, and I'm kind of getting my cue from on the left-hand side of the screen, guys. I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit. It's kind of the nature of showing you this. I can see that from the customer name that's saying, hey, Kathy, it's a customer field. So I'm just kind of deducing, and now you know that we can type in an order field, and then we can click on this drop down, and it will return just basically, those functions. So here's an order field, kind of gives you a description, maybe more of a description in some cases. Here it is down here, this question mark, it expands it, but it is on my clipboard. So let's say I come over here now, I highlighted date, guys, on the left-hand side of the screen, and I paste it in. And then let's say I don't really know, maybe I don't know for sure what the field name is. So I want, the date field because it says, thank you for your order received on, I'll put those words on here, on so-and-so. And I'll save this to see if it works. And it doesn't, because it just returned the word date. This is really cool down here, guys. Now I'm back on the assistant. I know I'm jumping back and forth from the preview to the assistant. I'm actually using Notepad++. So again, we'll help you kind of put it all together, review the video. It seems like a lot's going on, but I really don't think that it is once you kind of get your sea legs on and you get accustomed to working with these very few tables and how they kind of complement each other very well. So down here, this is just like going to the SQL maintenance, right? I typed it in O. I'm going to the orders table somewhere. Oh, not by it. And now here's all the real field names in the database. So you can do a quick peek and you can say, oh, well, that's the order date. Now, just by choosing order date, that's on my clipboard. I can now come over here where it just says date, and that didn't work and return anything. Now I'll put order date in there, again, save in Notepad++, and you can see those results. I'll do another one. For reference, your order number is, I need to replace this with order ID. Well, I already have this KPL function right here. I mean, it's really, handy that I can, well, now I can select that and I can pull out any field from the order table. I'll kind of get things started by pasting in the KPL function there. And then I want, maybe it's, I'll kind of do it wrong again because I know it's wrong. I'll say, oh, maybe it's, order ID. So I'll save that, see what gets returned. Well, that didn't really pull, from the order ID field because many of you know, and we know, that really the column name, the field name, well, the real field name in the database is ID. I'm just going to pull up the order data table to see that, the column label might be order ID, which it is in this case, but we need the real field names, and that's where these database tables and database fields on the bottom of the assistant can really come in handy for you guys. Just a couple of more pieces here. For example, if I wanted to start kind of laying out this customer address information, well, that's the name. Address is pretty straightforward. I think you guys get the drill here, so I don't think I'll go very much further. You know what? I don't even think it's address. It's street, actually, and I could look it up on the right, but I kind of know that, and I know you guys, I can tell by some of you on the line, some of you are very familiar with what the real field names in the database are too, but just to let you know, I could have scrolled down here or up here rather, and gotten to, yeah, the street, wherever the street is in here. I think it's in here. Oh no, customer. I'm pulling this from customer. Sorry guys. So that's good. Now I can type in a C and go to customers slowly, partially because this go to meeting. And here's where I can see what these fields really are labeled, and I could continue on down this path here. I have to copy that to my clipboard again. And I'll just finish this one up with state, and I'll call it a day on this because I want to show you one more thing that's really cool. Oops, and then I'll save that. Okay, so how you guys doing? I mean, you kind of getting the flow and the feel here. Can you check in with me? Give me a hand raise, give me a high five if you're feeling good about it, you're getting it, good. I always hate to think that I'm forcing anyone to do that, so thank you for kind of confirming that with me. I appreciate it. So this is shaping up nicely. I'll leave it as is. I want to go back though. I'm going to kind of close things up, tidy things up. I'll even just minimize Notepad++, close up HTML preview. And then I want to go back to this lab order received. Remember, this is the one that I copied the HTML contents. You don't have to go back to the table, the dp2 email templates table, to get to this HTML preview. So I want to kind of show you a couple ways of doing the same thing, of course, because that's kind of key in dp2. I could have stayed right here, and I just could have, found this lab order received in the mix of these email, templates that are sitting in this, order received folder inside of email templates, inside of, the path that's, I think this brings up, this would open up the whole folder. So this is the one that I did copy. This contains a whole shipping summary. And it's like, oh, well, you might see that and you might be like, well, that's cool. That might save me a lot of time. But you kind of have to know about this and some other kind of commands like this. Like this is a function, a shipping summary function. And how do you know what it's really pulling from? I want to show you that over in the assistant. So I'm going to do a filter on shipping summary. If you're wondering where I am, I'm over on the assistant on the right-hand side. I'm typing in the filter field, then I'm pulling down this this drop down here. And here's this function, this KPL function, shipping summary. And this is really cool. There's some tools in here. You can copy the selected macros. This is a good one. Open up the file containing the macro, containing this function, so that you can see really what it's made of. It takes you right into the right document. In this case, it's the or.txt class file, right to the shipping summary. And it's showing you where it's pulling all of this ship to information from. It's pulling it from the order table, ship to name, address, all of these. So this is one I like to show you because our generic order received email is using this shipping summary function, which is great, but it only is great for you if this is where you're storing your ship to information. And there's even a comment in here that says your ship to name in the order table can't be null, it can't be empty, or you won't see the shipping information. So I'm just going to show you in the order data table, guys, there's a whole bunch of these buyer fields, ship to fields. So ship to name, ship to address, city, state, and so on. And that's where we're pulling from in our generic, order shipped email. It might even be in the order received email, just confirming those fields as too. So in this video, you'll see me in that first example, I was pulling from, ship to fields out of the customer table. And then I really like this function. It's very powerful. You know, I wanted to show you this way of opening the file up in your editor, just so that you can see, you know, really what's behind the scenes, what's behind the curtain, what's behind the KPL function that really returns the results that, you know, obviously you're looking for. So I'm going to wrap things. I only have a few more minutes, guys. We are kind of sticklers on these micro learning sessions so that we can ensure that you get back to work in time and open up the phone lines for any questions. So I like to wrap this up by showing you where you can run and test your emails from without them being associated with an event first. So let me just go back to the order data table and right click, and there is send email in here. Look at that list of how the emails are organized. You'll see attachment emails, order received, order shipped, printer error emails. This list of organizing your emails, you guys, it comes from this type column inside of the dp2 email template. So hopefully I'm helping you put some of these pieces together. So this is really a valid way. Now you see the lab ones, you know, you'll see your lab ones listed in here. You know, I could send it. There's a macro in there, and because I'm communicating with my email server, it actually, you know, successfully sent the email to my Kodak Alaris address, so you can see that. And then one last thing I want to show you guys, I'm going to tidy things up here, and I'm going to go back to the events category, which is here, and event manager. Let's say you started to play around with event manager with the generic emails because you just wanted to set things up, you wanted to communicate with your email server, you wanted to see if things worked, and then you went and you customized, you know, your own specific lab email. Well, I just wanted to show you in here that now you could come back to one of your events and right click, and in this case an order related action, order emails, let's say order received. You'll then have, you know, once you create your custom emails, they'll now be part of these actions, part of an email that you can select here and save. And now, you know, you're putting that piece together with this event piece, and I'm sure I hit it home pretty hard. You don't have to send emails via your events that somehow, some way get triggered and then send the email automatically based on the event getting triggered, but certainly that's a valid way you guys might think about doing it. But I just want to give everybody an official thank you for being here so that you can get back to work on time and we can keep these micro learning sessions as planned and as scheduled for 45 minutes. So thanks everyone. If I see a hand raised, I'll open up your line. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Take care.